Hello everyone and welcome to Matong Safety and Health Environment. Today, Matong will explain one of the most important roles in an organization's occupational safety system. Many people have heard of this role. Some have already attended the training. Some may even have a certificate. However, many people still do not clearly understand what this role actually means or what responsibilities come with it. The role we are discussing today is the safety officer at supervisory level. In Thailand, this position is commonly called Jor Por Hua Nan Gan, which means an occupational safety officer at the supervisory level. Many people may have experienced something like this. The company sends a supervisor to attend a 2-day training course. After completing the course, the person receives a certificate and is told, "From now on, you are a safety officer at supervisory level." However, after that, nobody explains what the person is expected to do. Nobody explains the legal responsibilities. Some people believe that a safety officer at supervisory level is simply an assistant to the professional safety officer. Some believe that the supervisor must walk around inspecting the workplace on behalf of the safety department. Some believe that the certificate is only required to complete the company's legal documents before a government inspection. In many organizations, there may be dozens of safety officers at supervisory level. However, when an unsafe action or unsafe condition is identified, everyone still looks toward the safety department and thinks, the safety officer will probably deal with it. This misunderstanding is one of the most serious weaknesses in many occupational safety management systems. In reality, a safety officer at supervisory level is one of the most important parts of the organization's safety system. This is especially true in the hotel industry. Consider a hotel with 300, 400, or even more employees. The hotel may have a kitchen department, housekeeping, engineering, laundry, restaurants, stewarding, front office, security, stores, a spa, a swimming pool, maintenance activities, contractor work, and many operations taking place throughout the entire day and night. One professional safety officer cannot stand in every department at the same time. The professional safety officer cannot be present in the kitchen, engineering workshop, laundry room, guest floors, restaurants, swimming pool area, and every other workplace 24 hours a day. However, the person who works directly with the employees every day is the supervisor. The person who assigns the work is the supervisor. The person who sees how employees are performing the work is the supervisor. The person who knows when the work is being rushed is the supervisor. The person who knows when a problem is developing is the supervisor. And the person who may see the risk before anyone else is often the supervisor. Therefore, before we can understand the role of a safety officer at supervisory level, we must first understand the meaning of the word supervisor. Under Thai occupational safety law, a supervisor is not automatically determined by the word supervisor written in a job title. It is not determined only by salary grade. It is not determined by a different uniform. It is not determined by a name card stating that the person is a supervisor. What matters is the person's actual duties. Does the person have responsibility for controlling employees? Does the person supervise employees? Does the person have authority over employees? Does the person instruct or order employees to perform work within the department? These are the important questions. The law considers what the person actually does, rather than only what is written on a name card. Therefore, when we speak about a safety officer at supervisory level, we are not talking about creating another full-time safety officer position. We are talking about a person who is already responsible for supervising work and who is also legally required to manage safety within that work. To put it simply, if you have the authority to instruct another person to perform work, you also have responsibility for the safety of the work you instruct them to perform. This is the fundamental principle behind the safety officer at supervisory level. A safety officer at supervisory level and a professional safety officer are not the same position. A safety officer at supervisory level is not a smaller version of a professional safety officer. Under Thai law, safety officers at supervisory level and safety officers at management level are safety officers by position. Technical safety officers. Advanced Technical Safety Officers and Professional Safety Officers are safety officers appointed to perform specific safety functions. This distinction is very important. A professional safety officer supports the organization in building the occupational safety management system. The professional safety officer analyzes risks, conducts inspections, provides recommendations, monitors corrective actions, develops preventive measures, coordinates legal compliance, participates in accident investigations, and supports management in controlling workplace risks systematically. However, the supervisor is the person who controls the actual operation. For example, consider a hotel kitchen. A professional safety officer can conduct a risk assessment. The safety officer can assess risks involving knives, hot oil, cooking equipment, steam, food slicers, slippery floors, chemicals, and manual handling. The safety officer can help establish personal protective equipment requirements. The safety officer can help develop procedures and provide training. However, imagine that it is 8 o'clock in the evening. The kitchen is extremely busy. An employee is using the food slicer incorrectly. The person who immediately sees that unsafe behavior may not be the professional safety officer. It may be the chef or the kitchen supervisor. Therefore, if the organization creates a system in which every safety issue must wait for the safety department to intervene, that system will immediately contain a serious gap. Safety cannot be created by the safety department alone. This brings us to an important question for the hotel industry. Is a hotel required to appoint safety officers at supervisory level? The answer is yes, when the hotel meets the conditions prescribed by law. Hotels operating under Thai hotel law are included in the categories of establishments required to appoint different levels of occupational safety officers. When a hotel falls within the legal requirements, the employer must arrange for every qualifying supervisory level employee to become a safety officer at supervisory level. The most important word here is every. The law does not mean that one safety officer at supervisory level is enough for the entire hotel. It does not mean that the hotel may select only one representative from each department. It does not mean that a company with 20 supervisors can send only 5 people to the training and consider the requirement complete. The organization must identify every employee who meets the legal definition of a supervisor. If there are 10 qualifying supervisors, all 10 must be considered. If there are 20 qualifying supervisors, all 20 must be considered. If those individuals meet the legal conditions, the employer must take the required action. Another important question is how quickly the employer must complete this process. The number to remember is 120 days. When an establishment reaches the number of employees specified by law, the employer must appoint every qualified supervisory level employee as a safety officer at supervisory level within 120 days from the date the establishment reaches the prescribed number of employees. Another common situation occurs when an organization is already operating and an employee is promoted into a supervisory position. For example, a room attendant may be promoted to housekeeping supervisor. A technician may be promoted to engineering supervisor. If that person does not yet have the required qualifications to become a safety officer at supervisory level, the employer must arrange for the person to complete the legally required training and be appointed as a safety officer at supervisory level within 120 days from the date the person was appointed as a supervisory level employee. Therefore, the company should not think, "We will send the person whenever the next training course becomes available," or "We will wait until the end of the year and train all supervisors together." The law provides a specific time limit. For example, imagine that an employee is promoted to supervisor on the 1st of January. The employee does not yet have the required safety officer at supervisory level qualification. The company must begin tracking the 120-day period from the date the person is appointed as a supervisor. The period does not begin when the safety department remembers to arrange the training. After the person completes the training, meets the qualifications, and is officially appointed as a safety officer at supervisory level, the process is still not finished. The employer must also complete the legally required registration or notification process. The employer must notify the relevant authority within 30 days from the date of appointment. Therefore, in an organization with many supervisors, human resources and the safety department should maintain a clear tracking system. At a minimum, the system should record the date the employee was promoted or appointed to the supervisory position, whether the employee already has the required safety officer qualification, the deadline of 120 days, the date the person completed the training, the date of official appointment, and the date on which the appointment was registered or reported. A simple tracking system like this is extremely important. A hotel may have dozens of supervisors. Employees may be promoted, transferred, recruited, or may leave the organization throughout the year. Without a proper tracking system, legal compliance can easily be missed. Now we come to another question that causes a great deal of confusion. If a person's job title includes the word supervisor, but the person has no subordinates, must that person become a safety officer at supervisory level? The answer is that the decision should not be based on the job title alone. Imagine that a hotel has a position called spa supervisor. However, the person works alone. The person has no subordinate employees. The person has no authority to instruct anyone. The person does not supervise anyone. The person does not assign work to other employees. The person does not control anyone's shift. The company may simply use the word supervisor as a job grade or salary level. In this situation, the word supervisor in the position title alone does not automatically make the person a supervisory level employee under occupational safety law. The organization must examine the person's actual function. Does the person supervise other employees? Does the person control other employees? Does the person have authority over other employees? Can the person instruct other employees to perform work? If the person does not actually perform these duties, the organization should not automatically conclude that the person is legally considered a supervisor simply because the job title includes the word supervisor. However, the opposite situation must also be considered. Some employees may not have direct reports shown under their name on the organization chart, but in actual operations, they may act as a shift leader. For example, a front office supervisor may not have receptionists formally listed as direct reports on the organization chart. However, during the afternoon shift, that supervisor may decide which employee works at which counter. The supervisor may decide when employees take their breaks. The supervisor may assign someone to handle a group arrival. The supervisor may instruct employees to assist the concierge team. The supervisor may require employees to correct their work. The supervisor may stop unsafe or incorrect practices. The supervisor may control the work of other employees during the shift. In this situation, even if the organization chart does not clearly show direct reports, the person may still perform the functions of a supervisor under the law. Therefore, human resources and the safety department should not ask only, does this person have direct reports on the organization chart? They should also ask, in actual work, does this person control, supervise, manage, or instruct other employees? If the answer is yes, the organization must assess whether the person meets the legal definition of a supervisor. If the answer is no, the job title may be supervisor, senior supervisor, or team leader, but the title alone does not automatically determine the legal status. The law considers function more than title. This is an important principle that both human resources and safety professionals should remember. Let us consider some hotel examples. A housekeeping supervisor controls room attendants. The supervisor assigns floors, assigns rooms, inspects work, requires corrections, and controls the department's working standards. This is clearly a supervisory function. An engineering supervisor controls technicians. The supervisor assigns preventive maintenance work, assigns corrective maintenance work, and controls or authorizes the work of the engineering team. This also clearly involves supervisory responsibility. A restaurant supervisor controls waiters and waitresses during each shift. The supervisor assigns service zones, allocates tables, controls service operations, This is also a clear supervisory function. However, imagine that the company has a position called purchasing supervisor. The employee performs purchasing work independently. The person has no subordinate employees. The person has no authority to instruct anyone. The person does not manage or supervise any other employee. In that situation, the company should not make a decision based only on the word supervisor. The company should review the job description, the organization chart, the delegation of authority, and, most importantly, actual working practices. In many organizations, the job description and the actual daily work may not be the same. Once we understand who qualifies as a safety officer at supervisory level, the next question is, what must this person actually do? Thai law establishes 10 main duties for safety officers at supervisory level. This is the most important part of the role. Becoming a safety officer at supervisory level does not end when the person receives a certificate. In reality, the certificate is only the beginning. The first duty is to supervise employees in the department and ensure that they comply with the organization's safety manual and safe working requirements. Imagine a housekeeping department. The hotel requires employees to wear gloves when using certain chemicals. A supervisor walks past and sees a room attendant using the chemical without gloves. If the supervisor sees the unsafe practice and simply walks away, thinking that the safety officer will eventually correct it, this approach is not acceptable. The supervisor has a direct responsibility to control the work of employees within the area of responsibility. The person who controls the work must also control whether the work is being performed safely. The next duty is to analyze work within the department and identify hazards and risks. Supervisors are extremely important in this process because they understand their department's working procedures better than anyone else. An engineering supervisor knows which pump must be isolated before maintenance. The supervisor knows which valve must be closed. The supervisor knows where residual pressure may remain. The supervisor knows which work requires lockout and tagout. A chef knows where employees may begin to take shortcuts during the breakfast rush. The chef knows how different knives are used. The chef knows which steps may be skipped when employees are under pressure. A laundry supervisor knows which machines contain pinch points. The supervisor knows where employees may be exposed to heat. The supervisor knows which steps may create hand injuries. A housekeeping supervisor knows which tasks require lifting mattresses, which tasks require moving furniture, which tasks involve chemicals, and which tasks create slip and fall risks. Therefore, a risk assessment should not be a document prepared by the professional safety officer alone in an office. A good risk assessment must involve the people who understand the actual work process. Another duty is to participate in preparing the department's safety manual. Many safety officers at supervisory level may not realize that this is part of their responsibility. A department's safety manual should not be written by the safety department alone. The people who actually understand the work must explain how the process operates. They must help identify the hazards. They must help determine the correct working steps. And they must confirm whether the written controls can realistically be implemented. The law also requires safety manuals to be reviewed regularly, at least once every 6 months. The reason is simple. Work changes. Machinery changes. Chemicals change. Procedures change. Employees change. And risks may also change. A manual written 3 years ago and never opened again may no longer reflect the way the department works today. Another duty is to instruct employees in the correct and safe methods of work. A supervisor's responsibility is not limited to saying, "Be careful." Saying "be careful" is not the same as teaching a safe working procedure. In the kitchen, a chef should be able to teach employees how to use knives, how to hold a knife, how to pass a knife safely, how to store it, how to clean it, and how to use a food slicer correctly. In engineering, the supervisor should be able to explain isolation procedures, how to verify that hazardous energy has been controlled, how to use tools correctly, and what controls are required before the work begins. In housekeeping, the supervisor must teach employees how to use chemicals, how to read labels, how to dilute chemicals, how to select and use personal protective equipment, and how to store chemicals correctly. This is the type of safety training that takes place every day in actual operations. Another duty is to inspect working conditions, machinery, tools, and equipment to ensure that they are safe before daily work begins. This is extremely important. Some organizations believe that the safety officer must inspect everything. However, daily operational safety must begin within each department. The kitchen must inspect kitchen equipment. Laundry must inspect laundry machinery. Engineering must inspect the tools used by the engineering team. Housekeeping must inspect cleaning equipment. The supervisor should immediately recognize when equipment is abnormal. Is the machine guard in place? Is the electrical cable damaged? Does the emergency stop function correctly? Is the tool in a safe condition for use? The employees and supervisors who use this equipment every day are often the first people who should notice these problems. Another duty is to supervise the use of personal protective equipment, commonly called PPE. When the organization requires a face shield, safety shoes, gloves, or other protective equipment, the supervisor cannot say, "The safety department established the PPE requirement, so the safety officer must be the person who enforces it." The person who controls the employees must also control the use of PPE. Imagine an engineering technician grinding metal without wearing a face shield. The supervisor is standing nearby. If the supervisor sees the situation but does not stop the work and simply waits for the safety officer to pass by, this is not an effective safety system. Another duty is to report occupational accidents, injuries, illnesses, and other work-related incidents through the organization's reporting system. In an establishment with a safety department, the safety department must be notified immediately when an incident occurs. Imagine that a restaurant employee cuts a hand on broken glass. The injury is not severe. The supervisor says, "Just clean the wound and continue working. There is no need to inform safety." This may appear to be a small matter. However, it creates a serious weakness in the organization's safety management system. The accident information disappears. The organization does not know how often glass-related injuries occur. It does not know whether the same location is involved repeatedly. It cannot identify patterns, and it cannot develop effective long-term prevention measures. An incident report is not designed to find someone to blame. It exists so the organization can learn from what happened. Another duty is to participate in accident investigations. The supervisor must be involved in identifying the causes of an incident. When an accident occurs, the department should not simply say, "Safety can investigate it." The person who understands the work best is not always the professional safety officer. The safety officer may understand risk assessment, root cause analysis, and the hierarchy of controls. However, the chef understands kitchen operations. The engineer understands machinery and technical systems. Housekeeping understands the workflow of room attendants. Laundry understands the behavior of laundry machinery. Therefore, a high-quality accident investigation must combine both areas of knowledge. The safety officer understands investigation and risk control methods. The supervisor understands how the work is actually performed. Both sides must work together. Another duty is to promote and support occupational safety activities. This may include toolbox talks, safety briefings, near-miss reporting, departmental safety inspections, safety campaigns, pre-work meetings, or other activities that encourage employee participation. A positive safety culture cannot develop when every activity is driven only by the safety department. If every safety talk is delivered only by the professional safety officer, employees will see safety as the safety officer's responsibility. If every inspection is conducted only by the safety department, employees will see inspection as safety's responsibility. If the safety department must repeatedly chase employees for near-miss reports, the employees will continue to believe that safety belongs to a separate group of people. The supervisor is essential in changing this mindset. The final duty is to perform other occupational safety responsibilities assigned by the employer or by the safety officer at management level. This means that the safety officer at supervisory level can be directly integrated into the organization's overall safety management system. For example, supervisors may be assigned to conduct monthly departmental inspections, deliver toolbox talks, follow up corrective actions, report near misses, inspect PPE, inspect machine guards, participate in pre-work risk assessments, or carry out other safety activities established by the organization. All of these duties demonstrate one very important principle. The safety department does not own safety alone. Safety professionals develop systems, provide support, analyze risks, monitor performance, conduct inspections, provide advice, and support management in controlling risks. However, the people who control operations must also control the safety of those operations. Consider a simple example. An engineering supervisor tells a technician, "Go up there and repair it now. Hurry, because the guests are coming." That single instruction creates a work activity. The work may involve working at height, electricity, energy isolation, a permit to work system, or other serious hazards. The person issuing the instruction cannot separate themselves from the safety of the work and say, "Safety is the safety officer's responsibility. The supervisor's instruction is part of the work process." Consider another example from the kitchen. A chef tells the team, "We have many guests today. Work faster." Pressure to work faster may cause employees to skip important steps. They may handle hot equipment without PPE. They may operate machinery incorrectly. They may run across a wet floor. Therefore, leadership and safety cannot be separated. This is why the law establishes safety officers by position. Safety must be integrated into line management. It cannot exist only as a separate function inside the safety department. For an organization or hotel building its safety management system, the first question should not simply be, how many people have the word supervisor in their job title? The organization should begin by reviewing the organization structure. Every position should be assessed. Who does this person control? Who does this person supervise? Who receives work assignments from this person? Does this person have authority to control another employee's work? Does this person act as a shift leader? Does this person have direct reports? Even without direct reports, does the person supervise employees during actual operations? The organization should then review the job descriptions, the organization chart, the delegation of authority, and discuss actual working practices with each department head. The organization should not rely only on job titles. The next step is to create a supervisor legal compliance matrix. For example, housekeeping supervisor qualifying supervisory role, engineering supervisor qualifying supervisory role, restaurant supervisor qualifying supervisory role, front office supervisor actual function must be reviewed, purchasing supervisor determine whether the person controls or supervises other employees. Once the qualifying supervisors have been identified, the organization should track the following information. Does the person already have the required safety officer at supervisory level qualification? Has the person completed the required training? What was the date of promotion or appointment? What is the 120-day deadline? What was the official safety officer appointment date? And has the appointment been registered or reported within the required period? This system is not only useful for passing a government inspection. It also allows the organization to clearly identify which line supervisors have formal responsibilities within the occupational safety system. Finally, Matong would like everyone to remember 5 important points. First, a safety officer at supervisory level is not the department's full-time safety officer. It is a supervisor who has occupational safety responsibilities in addition to normal operational responsibilities. Second, when an establishment falls within the legal requirements, every qualifying supervisory level employee must be appointed as a safety officer at supervisory level. The organization cannot select only a few people simply to collect enough certificates. Third, When an employee is promoted or appointed to a supervisory level position and does not yet have the required qualification, the employer has 120 days to arrange the required training and appointment. After the person is appointed, the employer must also complete the required registration or notification process within the legal time limit. This must be carefully tracked. Fourth, do not decide whether someone is a supervisor based only on the word supervisor in the position title. If the person does not control, supervise, manage, or instruct other employees, the person does not automatically become a supervisor under occupational safety law merely because of the job title. On the other hand, if the organization chart does not show direct reports, but the person actually controls a shift, assigns work, and instructs other employees, that person may still meet the legal definition of a supervisor. Remember this clearly. The law considers function more than title. And finally, becoming a safety officer at supervisory level does not end on the day the person receives a certificate. That is the day the responsibility begins. Every time you assign work, every time you see an employee working unsafely, every time you inspect tools or equipment, every time you train an employee, every time you see someone failing to use PPE, every time an accident occurs, every time there is a near miss, and every time, you must decide whether unsafe work should be allowed to continue or whether the work should be stopped and corrected first. That is when the role of the safety officer at supervisory level becomes real. Because in the end, safety does not begin in the safety department. Safety begins with the person who controls the work. I am Maitong from Maitong Safety and Health Environment. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again in the next video.